You're going to be a guest of the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Explain to us how it came about and why you're going to be at the State of the Union.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I think, I've had a great relationship with the leader, and he has been very helpful for us with regards to the recovery in Puerto Rico. And as you know, there have been some issues that we're trying to tackle so that we can get the appropriate recovery funding in Puerto Rico and that we can actually get it to our island. So with that and continuous conversation, the leader was kind enough to invite me. And it is my hope that I can state our case, the important case for Puerto Rican equality, for equal treatment for U.S. citizens, and for the proper recovery funding that needs to go to our island.
What are your concerns about recovery funding? Is there any concern that the president may divert some of it for his border wall project? And if so, what would you do about that?
Well, it is a concern. I have voiced that concern. I have asked the president to state his position clearly. My view is that you should not be using funding for U.S. citizens to recover their lives in order to build a wall. And that's not only Puerto Ricans we're talking over here. We're talking about U.S. citizens in Florida, in Texas, California, South Carolina, and elsewhere. We've gone through a devastating event, and it's today it's us, but tomorrow it could be any other U.S. citizen. So we're hopeful that is not the case, but we're prepared to fight it if it is on any of the fronts. And my view is that instead of talking about taking funding from people that want to recover, want to remake, want to rebuild more effectively, what we should be having is a discussion on how we can get those funds faster to those people so that we can rebuild more effectively.
Governor, good morning. As you recover from the devastation that your country went through, you are going through a process of restructuring your bonds. And we've recently seen a U.S. District Court coming through and clearing the restructuring of the sales tax bond. Senior and junior bondholders are going to get 93 and 56 cents on the dollar. Is that number too high?
Well, we've been working on a surplus projections, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we get a path forward on all of the restructuring that is beneficial for the people of Puerto Rico. This restructuring represents savings of $17.5 billion throughout the lifetime of the debt. And it represents about $420 million a year for the people of Puerto Rico. That is money that can be used for health care, pensions, for security, important priorities for our people. So it is a path forward that we've established. And look, this is a novel structure with the Title III restructuring efforts. And it is one step. There's still many to take. There's about 19 creditors to deal with. And our hope is that we can sit down, see what money is available to pay our debt responsibly, but recognizing that we can't pay the bulk of it, and there needs to be a haircut on all of these debts.
As you say, there's more of these processes that need to go through. You're going to move on to more general bonds now. Are those sort of numbers a benchmark? And if they are a benchmark, do you not worry that the territory could end up back where it started in the kind of fiscal problems that it has now 10 years down the road?
Well, our projections are based on structural reforms that we're making. We've made labor reform in Puerto Rico, tax reform, permits reform. We're externalizing many services. I reduced 1 year to the next 17% of our operational budget. That is the single largest reduction in the history of Puerto Rico and the single largest reduction in any state in the past 40 years. So we're committed to recognizing that there is over expenditure on some fronts without hindering the important services that we need to give to our people. I am investing in healthcare. I am investing in the security of the people of Puerto Rico. We're investing in a new education reform. So we recognized when I arrived at this position, we were already in this whirlwind. My commitment was to transform, to make sure we could make these structural changes, and to be cognizant. If we make these changes, if we grow our economy, there will be a surplus. it'll be a small surplus, and that will be used so that we can, invest in Puerto Rico, and that we can, pay our responsibilities or part of our responsibilities in a restructuring effort.
Governor, are you able to make any projection as of now as to when Puerto Rico might be able to emerge from bankruptcy?
Well, this is a novel structure again, and there's several critical bonds credits that still need to be evaluated. But the sales tax creditors were probably one of the two biggest. So getting over that first hurdle was important. I hope that we can come out of this as quickly as possible, so that we can have a clear path forward. Once we are done with establishing what needs to be given and restructured with the bondholders, then we have a runway so that we can execute, we can grow our economy. Look, in Puerto Rico, there are many exciting things happening. Aside from the recovery funding that's coming in, we're going to be probably the hotbed for opportunity zones, which will be a critical opportunity to invest. We're creating newer markets. We're looking into sports booking, e-gaming, medical cannabis, hemp, as well as other novel markets that are important for us, blockchain, so that we can grow our economy. So Puerto Rico is actually, once we start ironing out the debt crisis that we have, once we continue on with our right-sizing efforts in government and reduction on the fiscal front, there's an exciting future for Puerto Rico that I see us becoming the connector of the Americas, an island of innovation, a place where we can empower our citizens, and that we showcase that we're open for business.
Now, you said that you have spoken with members of the Trump administration. What kinds of responses have you received on any of the points that you have made? Have you extracted any promises from the Trump administration?
So there are several fronts over here, and I can tell you the good and the bad. We've been working very effectively with HUD. Secretary Carson has been great. As a matter of fact, a few days ago, we got authorization to start spending $1.5 billion in CDBG DR funding for Puerto Rico. That is critical for transitioning people out of informal housing, for getting new structures and potentiating our economy. But by the same token, at a high level with FEMA, we've been having great challenges. FEMA controls the process in Puerto Rico as opposed to being the state that controls it. Now, you might ask, why are you making that petition? The reason is that every other state controls the process when a disaster goes through. And what's the difference? Well, I can give you a comparison in terms of the permanent work worksheets, project worksheets that are being enacted. By this time, after Hurricane Katrina, there were about 9,500 projects that were being already moved forward. In Puerto Rico, we only have 44. So you could see several orders of magnitude difference there, just based on the administrative maintenance and control that FEMA has over Puerto Rico. The main reason over here is that Puerto Rico is a colonial territory, so we don't have rights to vote for our House representatives or for our senators. And when we try to showcase these inequities, sometimes it falls on deaf ears. But I am hopeful that with today's platform and our continuous petition to be treated equally, these issues will be solved.
And finally, Governor, you mentioned industries like nascent industries, the hemp industry, Bitcoin, and other sort of, as you said, more novelty industries. What interest have you had from investors on this?
Oh, a great interest. About a week ago, we had our first Opportunity Zone conference. We've had several public-private alliance symposium. As a matter of fact, Puerto Rico has the most aggressive pipeline for public-private alliance projects. We have 7 on RFPs. There's great interest on the rebuild of the energy grid, which I think it's one of our top priorities. We want to make an energy grid that's old, costly, that uses fossil fuels fuel into one that's modern, that's collaborated with private stakeholders, and that could be a model for the region of energy grids to come to the future. So there is a lot of interest, not only in those nascent industries that we're talking about, but also in general for Puerto Rico. I think that these industries will just give us an opportunity to add value, to create new models that weren't there before, to create great jobs, and to showcase Puerto Rico as that connector of the Americas.